Hello, my name is Patricia Erb, and I'm the CEO of Save the Children Canada. Today is World Food Day. We have about 20,000 children in 42 countries participating in this event. They're helping us tell the world of the urgent need to tackle children's malnutrition and save children's lives. Today with me, I have Roger Mooking.
Yes,
He's a chef that has traveled with us to see our programs. A very special person with a special philosophy of feeding the body and the soul. I have a treat for Roger now. We have a video that shows some clips of what we did in the visit, and then we will chat about it.
Okay.
So, a video of Bangladesh.
Very nice video, Patricia.
Yes, you look good in it.
Oh.
So, we visited the nutrition centers in Silet,
Yep.
and you saw the mothers and the community members, and you saw the program of complementary feeding for children. So, can you tell us some of what you saw there?
Well, in that program, what I found interesting was, and doing some research and discovering things there, in that region, there is a history of breastfeeding. The community there knows about breastfeeding, but often there's, the mother-in-law, the dreaded mother-in-law intervention, who comes with their, traditional knowledge and history that may not be nutritionally correct, right? So you would have mothers who would be ending the breastfeeding cycle too early or extending it too long without supplementing the feeding properly. So, in those programs, Save the Children is going in and teaching the proper nutritional cycle, at what point they should be stopping the breastfeeding, and what part they should be introducing the family meal. I discovered there also that a lot of what the families would do traditionally is they would cook a meal for the family and then cook a separate meal for the children that they thought was, simple enough for their digestive system, when in actuality the digestive system could tolerate a lot more nutritive foods and animal proteins that would aid in their development. So it's just going in and teaching those, things that, around the world that we've discovered over the last 20 years, as well as, better nutritional information, and relaying that story and that information down to those mothers. And I saw really lively, happy kids. This kid, apparently he really liked eggs. Remember that?
Yeah.
He was hunting out for the eggs, and he was teaching himself to eat, and they're eating with their fingers, right? So eating, and he's looking for the egg, the bits that he likes, and you could tell that there was a real vibrancy in the kid, and it was really nice to see that.
True. Nutrition programs are quite simple in a way, right? You have to follow what's natural. So breastfeeding is natural, and the women do it. And so the point is to get the complementary feeding, but also the hygiene, is important.
Yes.
Because you saw the conditions.
Yes.
And so that's what also can sometimes cause the diarrheas and the diseases. So.
Yeah, because some of the conditions, if you haven't been to this region, some of the conditions are less than favorable. You know, there's mud next to a latrine, and if you're not looking, you may step in the mud thinking it's the and it's not always great, right? So, and you know, there's little bodies of water, ponds, and you see they're taking water from that pond and washing their clothes in it. You know, some parts of it in certain regions they're taking it and boiling to cook with. So, you know, they're dealing with the resources at our hand, which are not as, you know, fortunate as what we can experience here in North America and other parts of the world.
Correct. To me, one of the things that most impressed me were the community health workers. It always is that for me. In all our programs in the world, I see these vibrant women generally with eyes that sparkle, that are helping other people to improve their lives. Can you tell us what you saw there?
Well, what I found most compelling about that was it was obvious. You could pick out who the leader of the community was just in a crowd. You know, you really got the sense of respect that they held from their community, the sense of empowerment that the community gave them, and their passion for the community. You could see it. You could see it from a mile away. And once you start to interact with them, you could see their compassion come out as well in dealing with the people in that community. And, you know, it's one thing to go in as an NGO or as somebody like myself working with an NGO to say, okay, here's what we're going to do, and save the day, or, you know, and drop some money here, we're out, you know what I mean? And that's one strategy, and, you know, some places are in that dire of need that you just kind of have to put in the resources like that, right? But in a situation like what we saw in Bangladesh that I found really compelling was it's really driven by the community. And Save the Children is looking for the community leaders to inform them of how to best support what their needs are in their community. So it's, you know, self-fulfilling kind of prophecy, you know, and people see that, and those community leaders are really driving that information back to Save the Children, and then you come up with meaningful programming to support that in a sustainable way over time. Because, you know, you can come in and swoop in and out, you know, what they call seagull management. You know, you come in, you drop, and you leave, right? But that's not meaningful and sustainable over time. And the key with those community leaders is they're going to be there. They're going to stay there. And even if Save the Children pulls out after a certain time because their resources or their acumen is no longer needed in that because their job has been done and now it's being fulfilled and executed by the community and the government, when that day comes, hopefully that day does come, and when those days come, the community leaders continue to proliferate that story. And then they bring up other community leaders. You know, I saw some couple young little girls there who were just hanging out. You could tell like they're the next leaders of the community, you know, and it's meaningful.
Exactly. I think the honor for me of traveling with you, Roger, was I felt you really got what was happening and what we were doing. And so in some of our traveling, as we were going to places, those conversations we had in between were meaningful. And you talked a lot about seeing the sustainable development, and it was good for me to see that because I think that's what makes our work meaningful, and
Absolutely.
It can stay.
Absolutely. That's compelling, you know.
So once we finished the visit to the community, we went to Dhaka. And that was another very, very, very vibrant day.
Yes, yeah.
We went to see the program of working children, and you visited a center of domestic workers, and you cooked even with them. So what did you see there?
Well, what I found really interesting is in Dhaka, you know, Sylhet is a rural region. The traffic is limited, although it's a very overpopulated country. A lot of it is centralized in the major centers like Dhaka. So Dhaka is built for 3 million people, but it's supporting the lives of 15 million people. So there just is not the infrastructure, the traffic ways, and all of the systems that we sort of take for granted just aren't as fruitful to support that many people. So what you find is, there's little slum regions and little pockets, and as a result, you have a lot of families, because, the average family, I think, has 4 or 5 kids. You have a lot of parents who need the income, just the socioeconomic conditions there. The families need the income from young children to be able to just feed the family and keep a roof over their head, however, simple that roof may be. So, interesting position that Save the Children takes is not to remove them from that employment cycle, but to supplement it with education and training of vocational skills, so that although in the interim period they have to be able to earn an income to contribute to the family, but you're empowering them and giving them education and vocational skills and tools that they can remove their family from that cycle of generational poverty that keeps, again, generations of their family in that same circumstance. And I could see that, we went and we cooked with some of the kids in a facility there. They're doing art classes, and I was astonished, like these 7-year-old kids. I have 5-year-olds, my oldest daughter, and their artwork was amazing, incredible, and that's just a creative outlet to be able for them to express themselves, because it's not always easy for them to express themselves emotionally because of their social position, right? So that's an outlet and way for the outreach workers to be able to communicate with them and understand what their life is like. But more importantly, it's not just the cooking vocational stuff. They're doing embroidery and sewing and electronics and mechanics stuff, and I spoke to a couple of the kids, and one of my main questions was, what are your dreams for the future? Because you see that, and I've seen similar situations, and their dream was, to make it to next week. This one little boy said, I want to open a mechanic shop, and I want to employ other kids like myself when I get older and help them come through the system as well. So he's seen a future not only for himself, but for the next generation, which says a lot to me about the state of mind. And how valuable the programming is to be able to pull these kids out of this generational poverty and, what is, for lack of a better term, indentured servitude, right, in the homes. That to me was really, really compelling and very emotional. I have young kids, so for me to imagine my 5-year-old daughter taking care of a family of 3 kids, she I wouldn't let her walk to the end of the driveway. Do you know what I mean? So that really hit home for me and kind of solidified my understanding, but also my commitment to it, right?
Yeah, that was a very moving day, I think, for the whole group. Absolutely. I think one of the key things that inspired us were the youth and how they shared what they were doing. And so because today is Food Day, kind of going back to the nutrition focus, now we also have children all over the world helping us put the message out. It's their message too, and they're embracing it through a race. And so this morning you were also in activities, and somebody has handed me some questions from. And so one of them has to do with that. What did you see the kids this morning do at the event in Toronto? And were they excited about it? What did they share?
Yeah, there were 2. It looked to be like junior high school or maybe early high school there. We went up to York University. They're doing a project called Race for Survival. So it's, over the course of 24 hours, there are 40 45 countries participating and 20,000 kids around the world trying to raise awareness, and they're running a marathon. There's a runner, I can't remember his name, but he set a world record for marathon racing in 2.5 hours. And so they have a relay of all of these kids from these schools trying to beat his pace over the 2.5 hour marathon, right? And right now I'm proud to say that the school from Hamilton is keeping and beating the pace, actually. So that's good. Canada, you're represented for us. But, you know, it's 20,000 kids from 45 countries doing this around the world, trying to raise awareness for the value of what we're trying to support every single day, you know. And that to me is powerful to see these young kids. And I asked them, I said, why are you here? Do you know why you're here? They're like, yeah, you know, we're trying to raise awareness, eager and very hungry and ready to go out and run. And we had them do a couple little stretches to get ready, you know. And but it's really interesting to see the enthusiasm of the kids, but also there's a team of support people who bring this whole thing together, and how enthusiastic they are to bring this program to life and see the kids out there raising awareness for other kids that are their age, that they don't even know, you know. Is really, really touching.
This is very exciting for us at Save the Children. This is the event that is the largest we've had of children participation.
Amazing.
Ever. And so we have 20,000 children helping us tell the message. And they're very powerful. I read about the country director of Bangladesh. He said that they're the most compelling to tell the story of world hunger. So another question has to do with what you do. You're a chef, and we believe that food is a right, that children have the right to eat nutritious food, and you understand food systems. So what could you say about what we could do in the world and also in Canada to eat better food and have children eating better foods?
Well, you know, part of it is a food security issue. It's getting access to the food. Also, where there are places like, you know, maybe like West Africa, where it may not be, certain parts of West Africa, where it may not be access to the food, but to have enough money in the bank to be able to purchase the food that is accessible. So it's a multi-tier thing. You know, this is why I think Save the Children is really good, because you work on the education component to be able to educate people to get better jobs. You work on the vocational component to be able to give them marketable skills to get better jobs and to be able to have enough resources to get the food that is accessible. And where it is a chronic situation of malnutrition and there is not the access to food, you go in with the emergency systems and say, well, here's some access to food, and we try and make that happen as well, right? So it's a multi-tiered thing, and it's very easy to say, you know, let's slot in one segment of this component to be able to alleviate a portion of the problem. But once you go into the region and you start to really assess the situation that's happening there, you realize how valuable the multi-tiered approach is, because without the multi-tier approach, you can't have sustainable change. You can't have that community providing its own fruitfulness, right? And you have to do the education, the nutrition, the education, all of those components, as well as the emergency relief stuff, to be able to really have it, be a sustainable project over time. And so, from a food person's perspective, it's really just a small sliver, I'm most easily connected to that, but I am equally as connected to the breadth of the programming, because one cannot exist without the other in any meaningful way.
Mm-hmm. That's the body and the soul.
It's
right?
The body and the soul. It's the body and the soul. I do music too, right? Mm-hmm. And people are like, oh, you're a little ADD, you need to focus and all this stuff. It's like, I'm focused. I'm focused on, creating things and entertaining people and, and creating platforms like this to be able to help the lives of other people, right? So I'm very focused.
Mm-hmm. And I saw that connection many times in countries that we visit. To make children participate, we use music. We take songs that already exist, and we then change some words to make them educational. Generally, authors allow us to do that.
Yeah.
And one thing that I've learned is that songs about food and nutrition are some of the favorite ones. They always ask to sing those. So
that's good
I
to
saw
know.
it with the indigenous children in Bolivia, but I saw it in many other countries. So it makes me think about
And
your style of
and it was
in your
really,
message.
it was cool because in Dhaka, when we went to visit one of the programs, you remember, the kids put on a concert for us,
Hmm.
and they were singing and dancing and doing their little choreography and like lighting the candles, and it's amazing to see, like this one girl, she was recruited by a friend of hers into this program. So you see, it just proves the sustainability of it, right? You have this one kid who was helped by the situation. She brought her friend because her friend realized that she was, becoming a better person, I guess, for lack of a better term. She got sucked into it, and now she's the leader of that group, and you could spot her a mile away, that one, right? She was a leader of the group, and you could tell that she's influencing her community as well in a positive way, and that, to me, was just, it blew my mind.
Here's another question that I have, and they say, how important do you think fresh and local food is in proper nutrition?
Well, absolutely. We take certain things for granted in North America, I think, and in, quote unquote developed parts of the world. We won't get into that. But, you know, here in this part of the world, we covet local organic, and it's been a real movement in the last 10 years, but really, really honed in the last 3 to 5 years. This whole movement of organic and local and sustainable and all this terminology that's flooding the food world right now. You go to, any restaurant of note, and they'll tell you the farmer's name, they'll tell you the cow's name that you're eating the beef from, and, all this kind of stuff, right? So it's about that connection to the food. But, you go to the tropics, you go to, Bangladesh, everything is local, sustainable, and organic. Right? So there's not even a jargon about, oh, this is organic produce. It's just, that's vegetables. That's a pumpkin. And that pumpkin it's local. They're not importing this stuff. That's a poor country. There's not a lot of resources. And yes, there is that segment of the society who can purchase anything they want from anywhere in the world and that whole thing. But the majority of the population, they're taking what's around them and they're turning it into food that nourishes them. And it's all local, it's all sustainable, and it's all organic, So that whole conversation, that's why I question the word developed country. They're quite developed as far as I can see, because we're just catching on to that now.
Another question that our viewers are sending to you. How do you think parents in the developing world feel when they can't get their kids healthy food or take them to the doctor?
I can't even begin to comprehend how to answer that question, because that's not my circumstance. I've observed that circumstance, and it's a very different thing to observe a circumstance than to live it. I can imagine that it tears you apart every single day. As a parent, as an adult, as someone who is to nurture this child's life, and you're responsible for nurturing the life. I can't imagine, and I've seen it. I went to Cambodia. I saw a mother and a father with 2 kids, and they just did not have the resources to feed their family. And you could see how it pained them, how it ate them alive, every single day. And that baby's about to cry, but it comes to a point where the baby stops crying because it doesn't even have the energy to cry. And that the parents know that just by their circumstance, they're not able to provide for that child like that. I can't fathom that. I have a very fortunate life,
Mm-hmm.
And much of that is just by my birthplace and my family, strictly. But I can speculate that it must be a soul-crushing thing.
When we say that food is a right for children, what we're saying is that children need to have food that is nutritious, and that we all have a responsibility in it. It's a responsibility of governments. It's a responsibility of you and me that know that there's hunger out there.
Mm-hmm.
It's a responsibility of the parents, of the communities, of the local leaders. Everybody's involved when you're talking about it being a right for these children.
Mm-hmm.
So we all need to do and play our piece in ensuring that children all over the world in no place have to go hungry or do not live with a healthy body that is constructed by nutritious food.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So in Canada, we're doing a campaign.
Yes,
we're doing the Extra Plate. So can you tell us about that?
Okay, so the Extra Plate, everyone out there, go to theextraplate.ca. Again, that's theextraplate.ca. Donate. First, start by donating. $30, $60, $90. It's designed to be the cost of an average family meal. So $30, you come in, you start the game like that, we're happy campers. The money from this initiative is geared and moving directly to chronic malnutrition in places like Sahel, right? So this is where the Extra Plate is really meaningful. We also urge you to plate an extra plate at your table. So if you got a family of 5, plate a 6th plate. The kids around the table will be asking you, why is there an empty plate there, Ma, Dad, grandma, whatever? And you open the conversation. You say, well, that plate represents, these kids who don't have food, and explain them that situation, because it's very easily to get sucked and trapped into the fortune of our lives, and trapped in the day-to-day grind of just living, right? Open that conversation. Put the plate at the table, have the conversation with your kids, teach them about what's happening in the world, let them understand what's going on, so by the time they turn 12 they could be running the race for survival too. You know what I mean? It's really powerful stuff. I did that at home, and the kids, we grew up, my wife raised our kids being mindful of the fact that water comes out of the tap in the kitchen, in the bathroom, in the sinks. You can flush a toilet. It's pretty awesome. You go to the grocery and you can pick from any kind of food from any part of the world that you want, or you could be local, sustainable, organic, or you could get it from, or you could, your options are endless. And we try and enforce and reinforce the idea to our kids that you're really lucky. And really it's just because you came out of your mom and were born in this part of the world that is your fortune. But that's the fortune of a very small segment of the world's population. And we try and teach them that, but every now and then it's good to do something physically representative like that they could see and question and bring it home in a new way, right? But at the end of the day, it's most important that you donate. Theextraplate.ca.
Thank you, Roger. It's been a pleasure to partner with you.
Yes, you too. Everybody, this woman, Patricia Erb, is an angel walking the planet. If you don't know about her, you need to find out about her. She's a miraculous woman, and she leads this organization in Canada, and she has a heart of gold. She's a gem of a human being. If you don't care about me, you don't care about anything else, you need to understand who this woman is, because she's a very powerful human being. So I thank you for letting me participate.
And I can say all those things about you, Roger.
I'm just trying to keep up with you.